Hey, everybody. Welcome to Love and Reload, the voice of the relocation industry. I am your host, Ben Cross, and today we are talking about the election. It is still going on a little bit. So I think we're going to talk a little bit about the goings on, as well as get some reactions from our expert, Sameer Khedekar, managing attorney at Banyan. Sameer, how's it going, man?
What's going on, Ben? How you doing?
Man, I'm jacked up right now. I am jacked up right now. I've been up all night.
Yeah.
I went to bed thinking one thing. I woke up thinking another thing. I went to lunch thinking another thing. I'm here. I don't know what to think. So I'm excited to just process this with you a little bit, Sameer. I want to talk a little bit about what we're hearing right now going on. I want to encourage everybody who's watching right now to feed us information in real time, because I think this is a rapidly evolving, developing situation right now. So if you're watching right now, go ahead and leave a comment, get involved there, drop a name, give your company a shout out. Let us know what you're thinking, what your experience was voting. Let us know what you're thinking right now about as things are happening. I need updates as well, because I'm going to be focusing on Sameer and talking to him. So as things are coming out, please drop those news flashes in the comments. I'm really, this is kind of fun for me, Sameer. We're really doing like some live stuff right now, live news stuff right now, man. You get to do this kind of stuff a lot,
Not very often, so it's always a treat for me.
Yeah. You don't often get to break the most pressing news in the free world. No.
Well, I was going to suggest you put like a little ticker. I mean, can you do like a live cast with CNN or something, and just put on a map, an electoral college map behind us, so we can just start talking.
And I'll just touch. And if this state does this, and if this state does this,
that's right.
and if this state does this. How many times could people just push the state of Michigan and unpush the state of Michigan? And I'm just like, you guys, I mean, you're going to do this for 8 hours? You're just going to touch Michigan for 8 hours? Oh, my gosh. I'd love to hear your impressions if you were watching up all night like I was watching the elections come in. I'd love to know what you're thinking out there. Let's go ahead and kind of start getting in the comments a little bit and saying what's up to some people here. Let's see who's checking in. We got people all over the world checking in, wondering what's going on. Anthony Walmsley, what's going on, Anthony? Hey, Ben from the UK, your bro. Little broy over here. That's cool. I'm down. What's up, Anthony? Tim Quirk, hello, Ben and Sameer from Western New York. What's up, Timmy? Eric Scorzelli, Big Echo. Is that my nickname? Is that
I think he's
commentary?
hearing a big echo.
Is it coming from you, Sameer?
I don't know.
Let me know if you hear the echo, guys. Let me know. If it's just Scorzelli in a cardboard box in the Bronx somewhere. Gabby, because I can always change my mic if that's what's happening. Janet, do you hear that echo? Give me a no. Give me a yes. Okay, she says no. Gabby, hello from Wisconsin with no sleep.
Yeah.
For sure, Gabby. Right. Gabby, were you counting votes all night up there in Wisconsin or just watching? What's going on? Jane Woolston, cheers. Jane from Florida. Jane, you're in Florida now? You on vacation? What's going on? Let me know. Where'd you vote? Did you vote in Florida? Did you vote in Texas? Ann Knapp, stressed out in Scottsdale. Sleepless in Seattle. Stressed out in Scottsdale. Oh, this is great. Let's see here. Let's see. If you're having issues on LinkedIn, you can also watch on Facebook. Go check that out. Henry Henri Dussois. Hello, guys from France. America is still standing from my vantage point. Yes, Henri, we are still standing. I'm in Detroit. I feel like I'm in the epicenter of our democracy at this point right now, and it's wild, man. Sameer, what's your impression right now? Like, just give me some thoughts, man. Just thoughts of what's going on with the whole process.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a huge basketball fan, and to me, it feels like a Game 7 overtime NBA finals, just back and forth. The first quarter goes one way, and then it turns around in the second quarter, and then one team plays incredible defense, and suddenly the game's shifting. And that's kind of how it's felt for me. I actually got really excited by the early returns, not remembering that they were just counting the mail-in ballots first in Ohio and in Pennsylvania and other states, not Pennsylvania, Florida and other states. And so, yeah, Just my head spinning.
Like the 7 p.m. count was like, let me find out. Like, okay, interesting. Yeah, it's like game 7, like triple overtime, and like people are fouled out and like they're just hobbling around.
That's
tired. Don't know where they are.
Yeah, I just wish maybe I did a better job, or maybe the media could have did a better job of educating us as to which states are counting which votes when, right? Because I don't think a lot of us knew that some states were counting the mail-in ballots after they count the same day ballots, right? And vice versa. And
that was so weird, right?
Yeah.
Because you would think, okay, somebody voted 2 weeks ago or whatever, right? Okay, that first counted probably. And then you're hearing, well, no, we're going to count those last, or those may not be counted for days. Because I guess why? Because they're counting them by hand or something versus.
For some reason.
Yeah, it was so bizarre. Super weird. What I want to hear your thoughts out there. What's your experience like yesterday, today? I want to hear what your thoughts are on how this is all going. By the way, shout out to Quicken Loans, who has sponsored this session and will sponsor many more for SHRM credits. So if you are an HR professional, Jana, let's take that down. Let's make them watch the whole thing, and then we'll give them the SHRM credits here. I need a hook here. I need people to stay tuned here. But shout out to Lisa Fontana and the SHRM folks. We got Deanna also. Hi from Wisconsin. Deanna, thanks for voting. Tim Quirk, Henri, you were hilarious in the IM go-to meeting earlier today. Love to hear what the thoughts were from that. I heard that was really, really good at 1 p.m. Eastern. IM did a nice session on that. If you were in the Worldwide ERC one, I'd love to hear what the takeaways were. Please get active in the comments. Let us know. Elena Anderson DeLay, greetings from Maryland. Who's doing another all-nighter tonight? Woo, back to back. Nice. Back to back.
No, thank you.
Hey, if there's a live stream watch party on Facebook or something, or Twitch or something, let me know. I might be down for that. Jane Woolston saying there's an echo still, which is disconcerting. I could change mics real quick. So Sameer, while I try to figure out my echo and everything, give me some more of the ideas you've been having as you've been processing this. I'm very curious just to talk just for a moment before we talk about the long-term impacts. I want to talk about just kind of what's going on right now that you're seeing as you've been watching this unfold all day. I've been writing lots of emails, so I haven't really been paying attention. So let me know.
Yeah, sure. So by the time we're over here on the West Coast, right, and so by the time we hit the SAC. I think Michigan and Wisconsin looked very much, in favor of Trump. And so I was feeling, however I felt, like I personally did not want to see that happen. Being an immigration lawyer, obviously wanted a president who is more favorable to, the plight of immigrants here in this country. But then they wake up and things starting to shift around, right? Because they seem to be counting the mail-in ballots in both those states. So to see Biden take the lead in Michigan and Wisconsin, see it in Arizona and possibly Nevada, and realizing that he can win without winning Pennsylvania, Florida, or Ohio is just amazing. And the way things stand right now, he might be literally getting the minimum electoral votes at 270, which I don't think we've seen anything like that before. So it's a historic time for the country, but it's also very stressful, and I'm not sleeping very well.
Sorry, Sameer. Yeah, I was trying to fix that. Hey, Jane, let me know how it sounds now, okay?
Hopefully that's better. Hopefully it's not on my end. Just let me know.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, let me know, or else I just did that for absolutely no reason. I also lost a lot of the comments, so leave those comments again. Hey, we're just figuring this out, okay? This is like the PBS of relocation, okay? We're just like, Mr. Rogers and two soup cans over here. So we got let's see, people checking in here. Tim, I think Eric was echoing your thoughts. Lynn Griffith, shout out. Henri, Tom Brune, the sun still rose this morning, sunny Denver, Colorado. Hey, yeah, I want to say that too, real quick. As we get into this, I know that there's a lot of emotion, wrapped around these results, no matter who you support. And I just want to say, I think it's super important that we all remember one of the most encouraging things that I've been hearing as people are posting around this is there's been a lot of overwhelming support like recently, I say recently, the last 2 days, saying no matter what happens, we need to just all remember, to treat each other, with kindness and to be respectful and to be neighborly through this process. I mean, that's been that's been kind of a surprising thing that I've been reading on social, whether it be LinkedIn or Facebook, even ironically. And I was kind of encouraged by that. Sameer, have you been seeing some of that similar sentiment, a little more kind of responsible, frankly, than some of the commentary that's been going on before?
Yeah, I mean, for sure. I would say that, as we kind of, go through these times where initially it's been pretty divisive, what that leads us as a society towards is kind of figuring out, how can we get better at that? Like, no matter where we stand on the political spectrum, end of the day, as an immigration lawyer, I feel like, we're all humans, we're all people, right? I don't care what country you're from, what your skill set is, what your education is. It doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, we're all very similar to each other, and we all value essentially the same things when you get down to the core, which is our own happiness and the happiness of our loved ones. And so,
yeah.
I'm absolutely seeing a lot more of that. That's encouraging.
Yeah, same, which is really, really great. Henri just lays it out there. The French are just great. Henri says, I hope it's not too indiscreet to ask. Here I go. But are there any Trump voters among you? Henri, way too
early.
A fire in the
too
comments.
Soon.
Yes, too soon, bro. It's too soon. Scorzelli says Biden is addressing the nation right now.
Oh, should we just
Scorzelli,
lose your entire audience now too.
Scorzelli, can I get a play-by-play right now? Can I get it in the feed? Seriously, Scorzelli, give me some cut and paste in the feed. Matthew Odike, interesting to see what that means that Biden already has more popular votes than Obama had at his peak, but election might potentially be decided by Supreme Court. What domestic disturbance might come of this, hypothetically, whilst grabbing
terrible.
popcorn? Matthew's also a fire starter.
Yeah.
What do you see happening, Sameer? I know this isn't your legal expertise here.
Yeah.
But what do you see happening?
Well, I mean, there's 3 states that are majorly in play right now. Wisconsin, which was just declared for Biden. Michigan, which is, he has a very short lead over Trump right now. And then Pennsylvania, where Trump has something like it was like a 200,000 or 300,000 vote lead, but still over 1 million votes to be counted, mostly coming from heavily Democratic, precincts like Philadelphia and whatnot. So that can turn, and that's going to, just because of the rules that are in place, they can't start counting those until after the polls close. And so we're not going to hear about Pennsylvania until like Friday or even later. And there's likely going to be, possibly be a lawsuit there as well. So what we're seeing the Trump administration do in Wisconsin is ask for a recount, which they're legally able to do if they're within a certain margin, which I think they are. I think I heard the former governor of Wisconsin say that it's probably going to be, useless to do so. Maybe you can change a couple hundred votes to a recount, but there's a 20,000 margin there. That probably can't be usurped. So I don't see anything happening there. Michigan, the Trump administration has filed a lawsuit alleging that the Republicans were not allowed to oversee part of the election as they should have been. So I don't think anybody's even seen the lawsuit yet. It hasn't been made public, so we can't really comment on it.
Yeah, and that's what's interesting is the Trump campaign came out a couple hours ago reportedly and said that they had filed a lawsuit in the state of Michigan, and the Michigan county claim, or claims office said we haven't received that. So I think what you're seeing here is they're probably posturing and rhetorically grabbing that position even before their legal team can act on it, because a lot of this is going to be fought in the court of public opinion.
That's
as
correct.
So many things are, right?
Yeah.
And it's going to be left to hopefully that's not leaving it to the rabble rousers and in the streets, and hopefully we can all kind of remain civil here as we sort through this and patiently sort through this. Gabby says, Ben, what are people saying in Michigan? Twitter says it will go Biden soon. Sameer, Supreme Court action in Pennsylvania here. Well, Gabby, let me say people saying in Michigan. I mean, one of the things I heard in Michigan actually to further fuel the fire, frankly, unfortunately, but is to say that, in some counties in Michigan, they had more people, and this is not fact checked, and this is no basis in reality, but one of the reckless speculation that we do here is that there were more people that might have voted than were registered or citizens of that area, right? I don't think that's the case, and if for some reason that is the case, that's obviously an easy spot. That's not going to be something that people are going to get away with. I think some of that is posturing and frankly just trying to grab at straws. Sameer, thoughts? Did you address that Supreme Court action in Pennsylvania? Or
yeah, no, I'm like looking this up as we go along here, just because
you need me to buy some more time for you.
But I mean, there was a couple of court cases recently, right? There was the North Carolina case and the Pennsylvania case. The Pennsylvania case, the Republican Party lost, right, because they allowed, I think, what was it, for a longer period to count the elections. And so I haven't heard anything about another case, but I do know that case left open the possibility kind of for another case to be brought to kind of re-examine this in light of what happens in the election. So I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, I think it's almost 100% that if Trump loses Pennsylvania, which he still might, that he's going to challenge it and it's going to go to the Supreme Court. My view on the whole idea, I don't know how the Supreme Court's going to act. I don't even know what claims that the party would make. But generally speaking, my experience, my personal experience, but I think the experience of all of us with Trump in courts, especially as it relates to immigration, is that his cases aren't extremely well thought out. There's a lot of them. They tend to lose a lot, even in courts that are dominated by Republican appointees. So I would imagine that we'd see that trend continue.
Yeah, interesting. Interesting. I have thoughts on that, but whatever. And now Jack Jampel, Fox and the AP called it, but it's really too close to call. And what do you mean called what?
Called the election?
Called the election? The whole shebang? Whole enchilada? The whole coney dog? I mean, what are we talking here? I really want to know, Scorzelli, come back to me on that whole Biden addressing thing. I think Matthew Odike is saying that Biden's saying he has most likely won. Henri's taking a different tact here and says it's okay. We had the game 200 years ago here. Goodness. Okay, so there's a wide variety of outcomes apparently. Oh my gosh, these people are hilarious. Yeah. Oh my gosh, Matthew Odike said it, not Henri on the IM. I just think the heft of your oak is still with me. Yes, that was a running joke from yesterday's call. Daniel McCoy says Biden's at 254 electoral votes. I'm seeing 248 on the Google, but I'd love to hear any updates on this as well. And I promise we will get to the impact of immigration, but this is just too much fun. On the IM call today, they said 99% of recounts do not change the results. Mm-hmm. Interesting.
I agree with that. Yeah.
Victoria McCullough, they just announced Michigan projected to go to Biden. Wow. Yeah, that's surprising for me because I'll be honest with you, I voted in Michigan yesterday and I drove past a lot of Trump signs, and it was surprising how the demographics of the people that were Trump supporters surprised me a little bit. I'll be honest with you.
What'd you see?
I live in a fairly affluent, suburban area, right? Mm-hmm. And for better or worse, I'm just going to say what I hear people say all the time is that college educated, affluent, people, might tend to vote Democrat, whereas, Republicans might tend to be less educated. I don't mean to offend anybody with that, but whatever. But I'm actually seeing in Michigan, that's not true. A lot of kids also at colleges, right? You think the kids in colleges, they go Democrat. These Democratic, strongholds are oftentimes around college campuses. You look at Raleigh, North Carolina, with all the college, UNC and Duke, but here in Michigan, a lot of these kids are big Trump supporters. And it to me was it was different. I've been trying to understand it. I've been talking to these kids. I mean, some of these kids are in my neighborhood. One of them repaired my deck this summer, and I'm like trying to understand where they're coming from. And it tells me that we're not listening to each other, right? There's a huge population. You could say, about 67,734,433 people who feel underrepresented, when there's a Democratic president, or just don't feel like they're being heard, and I think it's really important. I mean, you can't please all the people all the time, but I think it's really important that we listen to one another and understand what their concerns are. Because when I look at the map, when I look at people pushing on the map, right? When they zoom out on that map, there's blue dots and then there's red swaths. And I think that there's just a huge disconnect, and I don't know how to explain it, but I want to solve it, because I don't like thinking that we live in an America where half the people don't agree with the other half.
I mean, I'd like to think this is just another stage in our, development as a country, right? Maybe you can look at it like we've receded. Maybe we're trying to catch up with, how things are in the social media age now. It knocked us for a loop, and now we got to kind of catch up and figure out how to unite in this new landscape. I mean, I think the best explanation that I've heard, there isn't one, reason why somebody would be a Republican today, a Trump Republican, versus a Democrat. There's so many different reasons. I think the one explanation that I thought was the best one that you can attribute to one party versus another is that there's this idea of just kind of a fear and a reluctance to embrace the changing demographic in this country. Now, whether you're talking about it, from a race perspective, religion, culture, just, ideology, there's a shifting demographic, right? And that makes certain people uncomfortable. Understandably, it's just human nature. It makes others excited, and I think kind of we're seeing that shift out in real time right now.
So I think that's a good segue into immigration. We got
that.
People, yeah, I thought you did a really nice job pivoting there. I'm over here totally distracted with some of these comments. My dad's taking umbrage with the assertion that there's less educated. There's tons of umbrage should be the name of the show. Not listening to each other. Quote of the day. Thanks, Dad. I'm glad we agree on that, for sure. And Knapp saying they called Arizona. Well, I feel like that's interesting, right? Because that's old news that then Sarah Sanders, Huckabee Sanders was saying, oh, I think it was too early last night. She was saying that.
Trump was making a late charge in Arizona. It was getting a little dicey there.
Yeah. Then he was saying it's nothing new that this country is very divided. Even the media is divided. It is nuts to decide on who to watch.
I agree with that.
Yeah. Last night was crazy because I was sitting there watching, and we're going to get to immigration, I swear, because I entice Sameer with immigration, and then I switch it on, and then I make him talk about stuff that we're just both recklessly speculating about. No, but I feel like it was funny last night because I'm sitting there watching with my wife, and we're watching, CNN. We're watching. That's right. Then we flip over to Fox News, right? Because I'm like, well, yeah, they're calling it, right? And I was actually really impressed at points with Fox News's coverage. Yeah. I thought they were getting their data faster. They had more people reporting. I mean, I didn't know if I trusted it, but I mean, they had their stats were a lot more current. And I actually thought some of their insights from some of the people that were on last night, I was actually really underwhelmed with the caliber of people that were on CNN and their resume, if you will. Yeah. Fox, and you see Karl Rove, who whatever, but I mean, he understands the electorate really well. Yeah, for sure. So I'm like, interesting. And then I went over to a friend of mine texted me and told me to go check out MSNBC, which I was actually also pleasantly surprised with Rachel Maddow and her crew. And so that was kind of my experience last night. What did you see in the media, Sameer?
Yeah, I mean, we did the same thing. We did just had our immediate family over, 2 kids, 10 and 8. We printed out some electoral college maps for them, and they can color in red and blue kind of when states were called, and that kept them excited for a while. We settled mostly in CNN only because the kids like the graphics. They can see the buttons, they can see the numbers. It looks like a sports pregame show.
It does look like ESPN.
Yeah, exactly. It's more visually entertaining. We definitely went back and forth to get all perspectives. Fox, MSNBC. Tried PBS, but that was a little too boring. I thought Fox did a good job. There were a couple times where I felt they kind of went off on a tangent, but I think I could say the same thing for CNN, which was, focused mostly on their Democratic viewership. They're like,
100%.
guys, relax. It's going to be okay. It's going to be okay.
Relax.
We're just be a little objective
right?
here.
Every time they say relax, you got to take a drink, right? I mean, it's like you would have been hammered on London, for sure. And, Anne brings up a point. Red swaths tend to show land, and land doesn't vote. Anne, I had this conversation last night with my wife, right? And you're right. A lot of those counties are just square and flyover states and whatever you want to say. But that also represents agriculture. It represents ecology. It represents areas where fracking is being done. There's a lot that goes on in that flyover country that I think we can't it's part of America too, And I think that maybe that's been part of the reason we got here is because we said, what happens in the middle of the country doesn't matter, you know? And I want to rethink that maybe just a little bit.
Well, as much as we, generalize, it's a valid generalization to say many Trump supporters don't have college degrees. I mean, that's been a focus of their, recruiting, right? I think we could say the same thing about the left, maybe being a little too intellectual about things, like, a little too educated. Like at some point, we're all people. We just got to think of each other as family, right? And that'll answer a lot of questions. Yeah,
no matter who's in the White House, we're still neighbors, right?
Yeah, that's
right. And more important than who's in, on Pennsylvania Avenue is who lives directly next to me and why they keep blowing their leaves in my yard every day. Okay. That has more impact on me than what Trump does. Okay. Yeah. And what I do and how I conduct myself and how I react to situations has way more to do with my family's success and health than the decisions that are being made at the White House level. So I just want to leave people with that so that they understand that they actually have, no matter which way this goes, and half the people won't be happy, but no matter which way this goes, I want you to know that everything's going to be okay. I still love you, and you can still watch the show and leave comments and get wild and crazy in the comments. Hey, so let's go ahead and pivot into the reason that I lured you here, Sameer, which was under the promise of discussing immigration, right? So now that let's discuss immigration, assuming the current presidency stays intact, and let's discuss it assuming Biden becomes the president in January. Mm-hmm. What happens? What's the impact?
Yeah, and when we talk about immigration, we should realize we're talking about it in different contexts, right? We're talking about it as it affects companies and mobility departments, right? We're talking about it from an illegal, a documented alien or illegal alien perspective. I'm talking before national. We're talking about it from Dreamers, the DACA program. So there's different ways or different approaches here. If the president remains president, it's pretty clear what they're going to do. It's definitely more of the same. In fact, his main immigration advisor, who I will say, unabashedly, he likes to lurk in the shadows and kind of dictate through, memos and have other people kind of enforce his policy. His name is Stephen Miller, and he already has a plan that he has. Sitting in his doors waiting to unleash once the election is won. The reason he hasn't unleashed it yet because he thought it would be unpopular to do so just before an election. So if that doesn't tell you kind of how kind of sweeping it would be, it should really give you a hint of kind of how drastic it is. And he wants to eliminate birthright citizenship, for example. So if you're born here. Mm-hmm. Now, can he do that? I think it's going to be a question for the Supreme Court. As it relates to the 14th Amendment. So then we get into constitutional interpretation and the kind of originalist leaning court that we have right now.
So the question becomes, if you are born here, are you an American?
That's right.
And it's not an unequivocal yes. Is what you're saying. Today it's an unequivocal yes. If you're born here, you're an American?
It's been an unequivocal yes. And court precedent has also substantiated that, but it's not written so clearly in the Constitution, right? There is room for a little wiggle room there. Courts have interpreted the intent of the founders to mean that.
What visa did the founders use when they came home?
That's right. That's a good one. Yeah. We can get into that. So that's one proposed change. Once again, he wants to cut refugee, incoming refugee numbers down to 0. And just
what kind of refugees?
So there's a quota for refugees. It used to be 25,000 a year or something like that. He wants to bring that down to basically 0, right?
So a quota for refugees, and I'm sorry to belabor this, but I never knew this. A quota for refugees says that we should be taking in 25,000 refugees annually.
Yeah.
And he wants to reduce that to 0.
That's right.
Well, if I'm sitting here, I'm saying, well, why should we have a goal about taking in refugees? What is the point of having a goal or a target around supporting other people from other countries that aren't our problem? It would be, I guess, the argument, right? So why is it important foreign policy to have a refugee goal?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. I think it's written almost into the fabric of our country that we welcome those that have, encountered distressing circumstances in their own country, welcome them into the folds of our country and help them create lives for themselves. And I think generations upon generations of people that live here have come from those backgrounds, right? And have kind of contributed to the country that we're in right now. So just to kind of halt that and turn our back on that, I think doesn't do justice to the whole purpose of, one of the purposes of why this country was formed in the first place.
I mean, it was probably the number one reason, wasn't it? That Protestants fled England to form a, I mean, that's why
they were persecuted.
Religious persecution, right?
Yeah.
I mean, so it makes sense that we kind of keep those ideals. We have a lot of comments coming here, and I want to take these. I want you to ask your questions or leave your comments, and my promise to you is to take at least 25% of them. So that was a joke. That was about quotas. But no, Matthew Odike, would the Biden administration mean that we can ship household goods to the USA again for foreign skilled workers?
I'm not sure what the implications are to household goods per se.
Let's start with the foreign skilled workers. How about this? Can we ship foreign skilled workers to the USA?
So what we're going to see with the Biden administration and the plan that he and his staff have laid out would be, first of all, they're going to roll back the approximately 400 or so executive orders and actions that the Trump administration has put into place over the last 3.5 years. So that's a huge number. That's going to take a lot of time. But what that means, at least for skilled workers, is that we're going to go back to a time where it's not so unreasonably hard to get a visa. Like the ability to get a visa is going to be consistent with what the rule says should make somebody eligible. We're not going to make it more strict or harder than what the rule says, right? So I think we'll see more companies be able to smoothly sponsor their skilled workers. And so I think that should increase.
So, and if we can have the skilled workers, then they can bring their stuff with them.
That's right.
Matthew, yes, it does mean that, Matthew. And I would love to be your destination agent in Detroit, Matthew. Vinny Valverde, we love you too, buddy. Hey, thanks, Vinny. Love you, man. However, well, you got to put a button there, Vinny. You couldn't just leave it. We love you. However, there are so many broken things in this country that we must not stay quiet. Whoever wins, one of the things is immigration reform. Now, Vinny, what is your 3-pronged approach? If I could write you on the ballot today, what is your 3 prongs you want? What's your platform for immigration reform, Vinny? I'd like to hear it. But Sameer, I'm going to ask you since you're live. Yeah. What are the things we need to reform now for immigration?
Yeah, so Vinny brings up immigration reform, which is a great point. And when people talk about immigration reform, they usually mean comprehensive immigration reform, which is how do we address the presence of 12 to 15 million undocumented people that are in this country that are, in my view, for the most part, living here, contributing to our economy, working, paying taxes, yet are not recognized with any kind of legal status of their own. So that is immigration reform, because there's been there's like, as Vinny mentions, it's broken. Like there's a gap in our system that allows this to happen.
I'm going to ask a question, Sameer. I'm going to represent the people out there who might be watching this who don't necessarily believe in the premise that you just said. Mm-hmm. What about these people who are here illegally, who are working, who are taking money and sending it back to their home country, and they're not paying taxes on it, and they're a burden to our system? That's what people are going to say. They're watching this. They don't believe. I don't know. That doesn't reflect my beliefs, but that's what people are going to say. So I'd like to speak directly to those people.
Yeah, I mean, I think I don't agree with that. I mean, I agree with the fact that those people exist, and I don't agree with them being allowed to do so. And I think the statistics point to most undocumented foreign nationals as working for companies, being paid as W-2 employees with, fake social security numbers, having their taxes withheld from their paycheck, right? So they are paying taxes, and then whatever money they have left.
So even though they're using fake social security numbers, they're still paying taxes?
Yes, because their taxes are being withheld, but they're not able to contribute to their own social security because they don't have social security.
And they can't file a refund because they don't have a real social security number. So all that taxes being withheld continues to be withheld.
That's correct.
Makes sense. So essentially, they are paying taxes. They're working here. They are paying taxes
for the most part. Yeah, and of course, you do have some, like you mentioned, others that are security threats and risks and commit crimes and are not a benefit to our economy. I would say Obama was called a deporter in chief when he was president, right? Because he focused on deporting any undocumented foreign national that was a security threat to this country. I think Biden's going to do the same thing. But the problem with immigration reform is you need Congress to create new rules. And we can have a president who's for it, and we can have a House that's for it. But if you don't have a Senate that's for it, it's never going to happen, right? So unless we see, I think, all three branches kind of fall under Democrat control, I don't think we're going to see immigration reform of any magnitude.
All right, let's see here. We got some more questions. That's great stuff here. Thank you, Vinny. Love it, Sameer. Thanks for entertaining my crazy comments as well. Gabby Bachhuber says, Gabby, I love when you comment. Some of these crazy people leave some crazy comments, but Gabby always has some really thoughtful, great questions. Gabby says, if Biden wins, what happens to the March H-1B lottery changes that Trump put in place recently? Wage priority. What is wage priority?
Wage priority, yeah. So Trump recently put in place a measure that prioritizes H-1B approvals or even selection in the lottery by how much money they're making. So right now there's a lottery, right? Every April 1st, if you want to get an H-1B, there's no bias, there's no preference. You just have a number, and then you have an equal chance as anybody else to get picked, right? Trump wants to change that to make it, more possible that you get picked if you have a higher salary. Start with the higher salaries and work your way down. And I think, Biden has been reported to have a very similar approach. Actually, I don't know if that particular rule would change much. I don't think Biden will let it stand in place this year. I think he's in a first priority to roll back everything that Trump did. So he might put into place his own measure that does similar things, but in his own way. But I think it is a priority of the Biden administration. Remember, Democrats have historically been for pro-labor union, pro-employee, pro-American worker, right? They're also going to be concerned about foreign nationals allegedly taking the jobs of U.S. workers. So they are going to be looking at this very closely.
So many questions about this. One, I want to question the premise that you just stated about foreign nationals taking the jobs of American workers, right? This is kind of a labor policy, immigration policy kind of question, but I wanted your opinion on that. Is that real? Is that a real argument? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, in my view, it's not. It's an easy argument to make.
It makes sense. It's an intuitive argument, right? I'm over here and I'm trying to get a job, and then you come in and take it for 15% less than I was going to do it for.
Unfortunately, every study that I've seen says the opposite. It says that especially skilled workers who start companies, who create jobs, it's not a zero-sum game. It's not a one-for-one. It's a pretty dynamic situation that we have. And the average H-1B employee, I think I read this, where they create 7 jobs apiece, right? So it's not like, maybe not that one particular person did, but the average, right? Because of the entrepreneurial nature of your H-1B employees and H-1B workers. So I don't think that's a real thing, but it's certainly the soundbite, and it's what much of the country believes.
Is there a problem where we conflate unskilled workers with skilled workers in this country when we start talking about immigration policy?
Yeah.
We're talking about, we talk about immigrants and we kind of think unskilled, but we're not thinking like Sergey Brin's of the world.
Yeah, it's complicated, right? I mean, those of us that sit in immigration every day, we know the distinction. There's difference, and there should be different rules and policies that are enacted to address each different problem. From the public perspective, it's all just immigration, right? Understandably. But the unskilled worker problem that we have is our, quote unquote, illegal alien problem, right? We have millions of people working in farm fields and factories and restaurants and other places where those establishments cannot find U.S. workers to do that work, even at competitive salaries, because the work is just too backbreaking, right? There should be visas that account for that, right? For example, did you know after Hurricane Katrina, the federal government suspended workplace enforcement because they needed the quote-unquote illegal aliens to rebuild New Orleans and parts of Louisiana. So they looked the other way just to allow that area to be rebuilt. So that should say something about the contributions of unskilled workers to this country. I think we should I think it's our moral obligation to recognize them.
Yeah, I agree. I had some unskilled workers do some really amazing things with my house recently. So props to Cut Birdo and the crew. Henri says, does the just solely have to be written in your Constitution?
Yeah, it's. I mean, the argument is that it is written into our Constitution.
What does that mean? I don't even know what that means.
Just solely is birthright citizenship. Yeah. So it does have to be written into the Constitution. It's been interpreted by every court so far to be written into our Constitution. So for Trump or Miller to say we're going to do away with it, well, they say a lot of things, but can they really do it? I don't think they can. But the idea that they actually want to try is what so they're going to try, and then it's going to get tied up in the courts, and we'll see where it goes.
You talked about the repealing. So you think you believe that the Biden administration, if they prevail, are going to repeal the 400 executive orders that you said Trump wrote? Mm-hmm. That's a lot. That's a lot of orders. He also did a Tax Cuts and Jobs Act of 2017. And the tax cuts, and I know you're not a tax attorney, but I'm going to ask you a tax attorney question. Mm-hmm. So get your Googling fingers ready. And no, but he did the 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, which effectively, and people, please fact check me on this. Throw it in the comments if I'm wrong. If I have my facts wrong, just throw it in there, and we'll suppress your comments. No, but he did Tax Cuts and Jobs Act 2017, and in that it changed the corporate tax from 35% to 21%, I believe. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And in doing so, eliminated a lot of the deductions, the itemized deductions for individuals, mm-hmm. and some for corporations, I think. But anyway, the idea was let's just lower the tax. And it was almost kind of a trickle down economic kind of theory. We'll just less taxes and they can reinvest and good for the economy, whatever. It was in the middle of an economic boom, so it was kind of debatable, but whatever. Mm-hmm. So anyway, as part of that, though, it removed the moving expense deduction, which is important to people in the relocation industry, because it used to be that if you relocated outside of 50 miles between your old place of employment and new place of employment, that you would be eligible to have your relocation expenses tax deductible. Mm-hmm. So you wouldn't be paying taxes. And now those relocation benefits are being counted as income for tax purposes. They're appearing on your W-2, and you are paying tax on those benefits. And it may even bump you to a higher tax bracket. And it also may even, and it's causing your employer to pay employment taxes on those and to have to gross that up. So it is an enormous, it's basically an enormous, cost to the employee and to the company, and the effect of that has been, to some degree, more people leaving managed relocation and going into things like lump sums. And my question to you is, does Biden, if he wins, repeal that 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act? Do we see maybe the moving expense deduction put back in place if it's just an outright repeal? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, and any tax people, please correct me if I'm wrong here, but no,
they will. They will.
I know those tax people. No. I mean, I remember that was in the first year of his presidency, and that was a huge win for him. But it wasn't an executive order. It was a law that he had passed through Congress. He had both the House and the Senate at that point, and that was a major victory for the Republican Party. So in order to repeal that, you'd have to have a similar law passed through the House and the Senate to repeal that. And I don't know where we are right now at the state of the Senate, but it doesn't sound like the Democrats are going to flip Senate. So I don't see that rule being repealed, which is the only way it can happen.
Well, because Biden was saying he was going to increase the corporate tax from 21 to 25 or 27% during the debates. Yeah. Would he still need a similar piece of legislation to increase that tax?
Yeah, it's one thing to make promises. Another thing, as you saw with Obama, right, when he was president, to actually be able to make it happen in the first place. I mean, so a lot of it's like, what do we intend to do versus what can we actually do? And sometimes people are voted on what they intend to do, which that's also understandable, right? It's all that you have to go off of.
So it would still be legislation that would have to pass, and who knows about that?
Yeah,
we got it. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments too, if you know anything more about that or have an opinion about it. I'm just trying to get that moving deduction, but I'm just a mover. Just trying to put freight on truck over here. Okay, guys. Paul DeBoer, what's up, Paulie? Paul DeBoer from WHR Group. Got the president of the house over here. Paul says, what is the current status of J visa holders being able to stay in the U.S. after they get their degrees? Never understood why we allow them to be educated and then not want them to stay. We need them.
Yeah. So the J visa, there's different kinds of J visas, but it's most of it, the common thread amongst the J visas are that somebody's coming here to learn something that their current country doesn't have, right? So they can take what they learned and take it back to their home country for the benefit of that country, right? Foreign exchange, right? Cross-cultural exchange, those kinds of things. Paul may be referring to the J1 researcher program, where we actually have individuals coming here and getting PhDs in like rocket, astrophysics and rocket science and those kinds of things, and we're sending it back because many J1 visa holders are required to return to their home country for 2 years to basically execute on what they learned here in the U.S. And so
they're required by their home country, or
it's required by the rule, by the laws, by the US. State Department rules. Called a 2-year residency requirement. It doesn't pertain to everybody in J1 status, only to those who come from countries that really need what they're doing, right? So, for example, if you're from Western Europe, Australia, other countries like Canada, there is no 2-year residency requirement because those countries pretty much, are on par with the U.S. when it comes to a lot of these, skills that are being learned, right? But if you're from a, third world country, there's generally a 2-year residency requirement. So that's how it's always been. It's how it's going to be, unless there's wholesale changes to that visa classification.
Wow, interesting.
But those are to be distinguished from the F1 students, which are your typical international students, right? And those are the ones that we really need to watch out for. Those are the ones that we need to keep in the U.S. and encourage them to get their advanced degrees, stay here, give them green cards as soon as they get their advanced degrees, and start, work for companies, create their own companies. It's only a benefit to us.
What visa was that you just?
So that's the F1 student visa. There are over 1 million international students in the U.S. right now on F1 student visas.
So we got to keep the F1s. Is there something we can do as industry to do that? Is there something we can do as employers to do that?
It's just lobbying efforts. I think if we get a Biden administration, they're they're fairly cognizant. They recognize the importance of the international student contribution to our country. But there is a bit of an attack on the international students with the current Trump administration.
So interesting. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, everybody. I mean, Anne, Valerie, Eric, Matthew, Henri, Paul, Gabby, Jack. Jack, you've been kind of quiet. What's up, Jack? What up, Jack? I think everybody's watching the. Did the Biden address? Is it over? Did he seize victory yet? I mean,
I don't know what happened. We're missing it.
Yeah, seriously. Can you tell us, because we can't tune off right now? So can you come back and tell us what's going on in the world right now? My goodness gracious. Henri's recollecting back to his J1 visa holder days. Is that when you met your wife, Henri? I think she's from Virginia, if I recall correctly. This brings back good memories. That's great. Vinny's saying he can't run for president because he's not a U.S. born.
Well, me neither.
There you go. What else should we be thinking about, or should corporate mobility people, RMCs? I mean, what else should we be thinking about? Let's assume that Biden. I'm getting some updates here.
Yeah.
Let's see what Jack says. Fox News just projected Michigan to Biden up to 264 electoral, several lawsuits being brought forth.
So Nevada would be the 6th, right? Once Nevada is a claim for Biden, he's got 270.
Yeah, and then Tom taking the high road here. Say it before, I'll say it again. It's kind of irony that Mr. Trump is married to 2 immigrants.
Well, and the administration has repeatedly talked about the ills of quote unquote chain migration, of somebody coming here and then bringing their family, their wife, their parents, their wife's parents, and that's exactly what Trump has done. Trump married Melania. Melania sponsored her parents, who were not working at the time, were burdened on U.S. taxpayers.
So does that mean if Just Sully goes away, does that mean that Ivana has to go somewhere else, or how does that?
Melania?
No, his daughter Ivana, Ivanka, his daughter.
That's right.
Ivana.
I believe it's not retroactive, unfortunately.
Oh, jeez. Oh, this is terrible. Let's see here. Gabby says, seeing news that Nevada will release tonight.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That was a close one.
Everybody's quoting Fox News here. Exactly. Supposedly Nevada won't be announced until Thursday, Friday. Robin Vogel says America is we're going to have Robin on the show. America is such a draw card for international students. I hope that is protected.
Well, I think to Robin's point, the thing, you'd have to watch out for that even under Biden, because Biden doesn't want to keep this kind of wage, this floor in place, right? But when international students are first hired at a school, they're not making a ton of money, as no student really is, right? You're just beginning in your career, unless you're truly exceptional, got a PhD or whatever. Even then, maybe not. So a lot of students are going to lose out. A lot of companies that recruit students are going to lose out because they're not going to be able to afford the very high salaries that are required to pay them.
That's really interesting. Hey, by the way, if you are a SHRM HR professional, I want to point out something really super cool. Shout out to Quicken Loans. They are sponsoring SHRM credits for this talk. I hope after SHRM watches this that they still think it's worthy of credits. There's an activity ID at the bottom. Visit shrmcertification.org. Toss in that little number. I don't know if promo code's the proper word, but the ID number. Toss in that ID number, 20-6 M as in Mary, 4 Z as in Zed, 5. Visit shrmcertification.org. Check that out. Big shout out to Lisa Fontana and the Quicken people for sponsoring SHRM credits. Pretty excited about that. We're going to try to bring that to you as much as possible. So tell your HR friends, if they are SHRM certified, that they can get that kind of stuff. Sameer, what else should we be thinking about or strategizing for with our programs going into 2021? Do you foresee changes to people's mobility programs, to their corporate immigration policies? I mean, what are you seeing there?
I just love to see whichever way we go. We have to protect U.S. workers, but we have to also modernize our immigration system. In any case, it's so antiquated. Much of it was kind of concocted back in 1985, 1990, didn't contemplate our, current economy, even pre-COVID, much less kind of what's happening, post-COVID, right? And it doesn't really match up well at all with how businesses operate anymore. And so, I think with COVID, we're realizing obviously we don't have to be necessarily working in an office anymore, right? Here in California, we had Proposition, I think it was 22, the Uber proposition, Uber and Lyft.
Oh,
right?
yeah, that's huge.
Yeah, that basically allows for companies to, keep people on a 1099 and kind of give them some sort of hybrid version of benefits, kind of relating to the amount of work you're doing. So this kind of gig economy kind of arrangement might start expanding to other areas and not just the Uber and Lyft drivers, right? So thinking about how companies and mobility departments are going to, use that to maybe your benefit if it's, applicable and if it makes sense for you and makes sense for your talent force. Right. So,
well, I mean, think about just in global mobility alone from a service provider standpoint. All the movers out there are running contractors, contractor driver forces. The DSPs out there are using contractors for their destination service providers. I mean, I don't offhand, I don't know what other ones are, but I mean, there's just so much gig work going around right now, and this really. It started with AB5. It really threatened to undermine the infrastructure that has been built. Now, something I'm sure would have popped up in its place and whatever. But a lot of business owners were saying they would have been untenable and burdensome, under the new rules. So I think that's a great call out right there.
Yeah, and I just think we have, as a country, should be cognizant of kind of what the last few years have done. Kind of to our standing as a place to attract international talent, right? It's certainly decreased. Rates of immigration to Canada have skyrocketed as an alternative to coming here. Companies are starting to flourish up in Toronto and in Vancouver because it's just too stressful, too hard. People don't feel wanted here anymore if you're from India or from China or from other countries, right? So I think it's important that we kind of change that around, right? And kind of we open our doors and kind of remind them that they're welcome here because, first of all, it's consistent with the values of our country, but secondly, I mean, it's such a benefit to our economy to have talent innovation, consider the U.S. to be the primary place to be.
Yeah, I mean, talking about our talent brand as a country, it's just like a talent brand of a company. We've got a couple of some great comments coming in there from Ann. It looks like there's a Sharpie issue. It might be the hanging Chad of this election.
Oh no, the Sharpie.
Happening. There's the Sharpie. Actually, I was filling out my Scantron and I was like, it'd be a lot better than a ballpoint right now. If I just had a Sharpie. The irony that Trump signs everything with a Sharpie, but we can't vote with a Sharpie. I don't even know. Vinny says, Sameer, if Biden wins, do you think there will be any changes to the F1 CPT OPT STEM program?
I do. I think in much the same way that Trump has made it much more difficult for students to continue their LPT, right? He wanted to roll back the STEM LPT program and wasn't successful in doing that, but probably is on the agenda if he becomes president or continues as president. I think there'd be more possibility of kind of legitimizing STEM LPT, maybe expanding it, making it, a little bit more consistent with the needs of companies, especially in the STEM program, maybe even being able to kind of push through some legislation to award, green cards to advanced degree holders and keep them from having to kind of repeatedly go through the H-1B lottery program, which is, pain for them, but also for the companies.
We're getting updates on the Sharpie issue in real time. Gabby says the Sharpie's allowed through Nevada.
What's going to happen to Sharpie stock prices?
I mean, Arizona. Gabby, I need clarification. You're talking about Sharpies are allowed in Arizona and saying there's a Sharpie issue in Arizona. Is this a straw man Sharpie issue? Is this what is this? I need more clarification. Brent Bergen says, unfortunately, I don't anticipate current moving expenses law being repealed. In general, individual income social tax burden will increase for incomes of $400,000 to $500,000 approximately with Biden win. I aspire to have that problem. And so this is great. thank you so much for everybody. This has been just giving us these updates. This is fantastic. Probably gonna pour a bourbon and watch this myself. Sameer, why don't you just leave us with like kind of a final thought, if you don't mind, for us to kind of ruminate on as we're watching the end of the election and going into 2021.
Yeah, let's just all remember that the contributions of the immigrant population to our country often go unheralded. But just Google it, just look it up. They contribute heavily to our economy. They start companies, they create jobs. And I think it's high time we recognize that and just make it easier for them to flourish and help our country flourish.
Yeah, that's great. And along those lines, I think it's part of the fabric of our country. It's what's made America great in the first place, is the contribution of immigrants. And I don't think that we should ever lose sight of that. And we shouldn't think short-sighted. We should have an abundance mindset. And the fact that this is the place that the best and brightest minds in the world want to live and work should be is probably our number one greatest asset. So I hope that we don't ever compromise that and lose our true way as it pertains to that. So thank you so much, everybody, for being here today. Appreciate everybody that voted and participated in this process. To everyone whose outcome didn't go their way, I want to say, just as a fellow American, I love you. I respect you. I appreciate you. I hope that we can all continue to kind of be together as one America and kind of civilly talk through our differences of opinion. I think to Sameer's point earlier, we all want our families to have a better life, right? And I think we just kind of quibble over how to get there. But if we can all remember that we have the same end game together, I think that always helps us see eye to eye. So just have empathy right now. It's going to be a trying next couple of months. I'm sure it's a very sensitive time. So let's just have empathy, no matter which side of the aisle we are on. And let's just try to come out of this thing together, no matter how it ends. So thanks, everybody.